Kirk Cameron, Riley Gaines, welcome to Washington Times Higher Ground. Lots to talk about with both of you. It's so fun having you both here together. I've not had a chance to do that before, so welcome.
Well, thank
Great
you.
to be here.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, so Kirk, I'm going to start with you here, and then I want to hear from you on this, Riley. But we are obviously right now in the middle of a very confused and chaotic culture. Diagnose for me, Kirk, why you think we ended up where we are right now.
Dr. Kirk, what's going on in the country right now? What is the social contagion that's making everybody so sick? I think I do know at the heart of it, when we say that we're sick, we have great technology. We're thriving in certain areas of culture that we can do things today that we could never do generations in the past. But when you say that, what you're really asking is, why are we so morally sick? Why do we appear to be worse human beings in the way that we treat each other and what we do with opportunities to end up harming each other rather than helping one another? And then we even do it in the name of helping each other, right? So you have gender affirming care while you mutilate children. You have all sorts of wacky, crazy things that make us want to lose our mind. And I know that the reason for this is that, as a Christian, I understand this. So I don't expect everybody to understand this, but not because I have some superior intellect. No, it's that there's something that turns on inside of your heart. You have eyes that understand that the heart is sick and desperately in need of healing from within. And it's God who does that. God who heals the heart and heals the soul and can give you eyes to see the truth and ears to hear it. And what has happened is that we have drifted away from God and from his word in the Bible. And when we do that, don't take my word for it. Take George Washington's word for it. Take the founder's word for it. Take the pilgrim's word for it. Take God's own word for it. We end up calling good evil and evil good. We're prisoners and enslaved to the worst forms of ourselves, and people will take advantage of others in the name of doing good to advance their own agenda. And what we need to do is get back to curing the root problem, which is the heart. And then the fruit of the nation and society will begin to be sweet again.
Yeah, no, that is incredible. It's amazing how you worded that. And obviously there are ramifications to this. Riley, you've experienced those ramifications in a practical sense, and these affect everybody, whether you're a Christian or you're not a Christian. In your case, obviously, finding yourself competing against, a biological man. What do you make of that? As you were going through it, even, Riley, what was that like to make sense of? How in the world were you at a place where you were forced to really do the unthinkable?
Well, I won't say I was naive before this, but what I will, because I knew, right, as a Christian, as someone who is always aligned, I'll say conservative, but more importantly, as a Christian, of course, those values align that way. I knew this stuff was happening around me, but I had no idea that it would impact me. I thought to myself, no way this affects me. I had my head down. I was focused on my personal success, the success of my team, what I was going to do in my life outside of swimming once that ended. But then it did impact me. And I realized to myself, what a naive thought. To think that I was immune to this. And that's what I've realized is no one is immune, just as you said. But you ask about feelings, how it felt in this moment of looking to my left and seeing a man, a 6'4" man, towering over every girl, not every other girl, that would imply that he is one, every girl in that pool, fooling no one. His feet were so much bigger. He was, of course, so much lankier, his shoulders. I thought to myself, does anyone really actually believe that this person is a woman? There's no way. There's no way that the NCAA, ESPN, our coaches, our officials, our parents, other female swimmers, there's no way we actually believe this. And so the feelings I had in that moment, outside of I guess this feeling of being involved in a circus, was betrayal, is how I felt. I felt like I was going into this race with my hands tied behind my back. And in regards specifically to the locker room, which is a different aspect of this, how I felt in that moment is of course, it's an utter violation. It's awkward. It's embarrassing. It's uncomfortable to undress next to a 6'4" man, fully intact, exposing himself while you were also simultaneously fully undressed. I think the best word to describe how that felt was traumatic, really, and not even necessarily traumatic because of what we were forced to see or how we as women were forcibly and non-consensually exploited. It was traumatic for me to know just how easy it was for those people who created and enforced these policies to totally dismiss our rights to privacy without even a second thought, without even bare minimum forewarning us that this would be the arrangement that was had.
And when I said before you were forced to do the unthinkable, it means to live that out and pretend as you had to, right, in the beginning, that this was somehow normal, right? That was the position you were put in. Kirk, in light of where we are right now and what you were saying before and hearing what Riley has said, why do you think so many people have been so silent? You don't get to this place, if people are speaking out. A lot of people have enabled us to end up here.
Yeah, well, Riley, first of all, I've heard you share this on Joe Rogan Experience, and I've heard you share this in other places. But just to hear it again, I'm just always blown away every time when you say these things. I'm thinking, holy cow, what are people thinking? How did someone not step up? And I agree with you. I would have assumed if I were sitting in your shoes that a parent, a coach, an official, a judge, somebody would have said something, that they certainly wouldn't have left it up to the female athletes to blow the whistle and stop this charade. So I am so proud of you. You are so brave and courageous, and you just locked on to truth and goodness, and I'm just grateful to know you. Why haven't people spoken up? I think it comes down to fear. I think fear is the main reason that people don't want to stick their neck out. We're afraid of what people are going to say, and worse, what people might do. We might lose our job. We might not be able to find work again. I know people that's happened to because of their religion, because of their politics, because of their vaccination status, and now because you think that a 6'4" man is a man and doesn't qualify as a woman, that could put you in deep trouble. So I think that's what it is. It's fear, and it's understandable. We all feel fear. It's a natural response when we think something's bad going to happen to us. And courage is a decision. Courage is what Riley is doing. Courage is what heroes do. And the more heroes step out in faith, with courage and bravery, it begins to wake other people up, and they come out of this frozen prison of fear and say, wow, she can do it. If he can do it, if somebody else can do it, I can do it. And if I don't do it, who will do it? And if we don't do this and we don't do it now, what's going to happen to our children? And that's where you see strongholds being broken, and you see revivals begin to happen, great awakenings take place, and everybody knows, God knows, we need one of those in our country right now.
Yeah, I mean, both of you have teamed up with Brave Books. You're both doing a lot of different things, and you're both brave. You're both speaking out. This is not easy. I mean, Riley, you have faced even physical issues where people, it seems, have come after you. You obviously have people going after you on social media. Both of you could very easily go right off in the sunset and do other things, right? You don't need to be doing what you're doing, yet you're both speaking out. Riley, talk a little bit about some of the challenges of that, of really saying, I'm going to be bold. I'm going to continue to speak even when there is a cost.
Yeah, the challenges. There's certainly been a lot of those in terms of, the name calling, which you both know. I'm sure many of the people watching and listening to this know. For merely saying you're a Christian or a conservative, you receive this, right? Whether it's transphobic, whether it's homophobic, whether it's racist, white supremacist, domestic terrorist, fascist, they will throw anything and everything your way. It took me a while to be okay reading these things, right? I think understandably, like Kirk said, no one wants to be called these things, especially, a 20-year-old girl. And I know myself, I'm not these things. But anyways, it took me a while to be okay with it before I realized what that really was. And it's merely name calling. That's what we do in second grade, is call each other names. These names people were hurling my way, these petty personal attacks. It wasn't based in anything other than, I think, their own insecurities, to be honest with you. As you mentioned, even physical attacks and violence many times, which is that's when I mean, I've been in multiple scenarios where I have wholeheartedly feared for my life. I've been attacked. I've been punched in the face by these men who are wearing dresses, which fortunately for me, their punches don't really hurt that bad. But ultimately, these protesters, I mean, I've been held for ransom through the middle of the night where they demand if I want to make it home to see my family safely again, I have to pay them money. All the while, the police are being held for ransom with me. I've had people showing up at my house. I've had drones flying above my house. I've had people calling around. They know I'm going to a specific city. They'll call around hotels, find out where I'm staying at that hotel. They'll stake outside my hotel room and chant for hours and hours. But that's what they do. They will do anything and everything in their power to just, again, as Kirk said, to scare you. They want you silent so desperately. And again, let me be very clear on the stance that I have taken, specific, I guess, to the gender ideology movement. What I'm saying here is there are two sexes. You can't change your sex, and each sex is deserving of safety, privacy, and equal opportunity. But merely for saying that and for standing, I guess, of course, for objective truth, but also for biblical truth, you are met with some of the most violent, hateful attacks you could possibly imagine. But to counter all of that, and I'll just add this very briefly, all of that sounds pretty scary. And again, understandably so. But what I will say is the support that I receive daily from coaches, from parents, from female athletes themselves, from medical professionals, from spiritual leaders, the list goes on. The support that I receive daily is tenfold anything negative, tenfold. And that's why we do it. Again, just like Kirk said, we do it for that next generation, right? I have a younger sister. She's an athlete. She's incredible. That's who we're fighting for. People like my younger sister, being married for almost 2 years. I can only hope to have a daughter of my own one day. And I'll tell you, I cannot imagine being in the position that we're in, facing what we faced, experiencing what I experienced, and not fighting for my future daughter. That's what this is about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you're out there fighting those battles. Kirk, you're fighting battles in a different way. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the kids show that you're working on. We talk about reaching the next generation, but also, and this is important, Kirk, because over the years, you've talked a lot about courage and love and kindness towards others, both through your Brave projects and others, but you've also looked at history. And when we talk about America and what really made America great, it was the ability to disagree with people and not attack them, not show up at their hotel chanting. I mean, that's insane, Riley. I didn't even know that some of those things were going on. Talk a little bit about the importance of getting back to those values of being able to agree to disagree, Kirk.
Sure. By the way, it shouldn't be passed over that the ideas of equal opportunity and equal rights and civil rights and human rights and the ability to agree to disagree, these are foreign concepts to the world prior to the Bible. You just kill the guy that you don't agree with. You take over, you take his stuff, you take his wife, you take his house, and you just take over the people. And then the Bible comes along and people begin to incorporate those principles into their own heart, into their own family, their communities. And then you wind up with a country like ours that has so much blessing, so much opportunity, so much liberty, so much protection. And we essentially, we're not progressing with these new sets of values. You listen to what Riley's saying. Does this sound like progressive behavior? It's regressive behavior. You're regressing back to barbaric, pagan, just animalistic tactics to get what you want. That's not what we're about. However, if you rip the root that nourishes all these good values out of the ground, and that root is those biblical values, that objective truth, understanding that God's ways are the good ways. Once you pull that out, you're back. You're not with the law of the land anymore. You're back with the law of the jungle, and the strongest win. And it's going to be a 6'4" man in the pool who's going to win? Unless we come back to an objective standard of truth and beauty and goodness. So I believe that we also have to make a pivot and a shift from merely being armchair commentators as we watch the news, head in our hands, crying in our Chick-fil-A soup, saying, wait, they cheated. Wait, that's not true. I can't believe they're doing that to our children. And start getting into an offensive mode and saying, hell no, you're not taking my children for 7 and 8 hours a day and telling my son that he's a daughter. No, you're not going to do that. And there is such a thing as truth. I'm taking back my children's education. We're going to create the cultures we want for our kids. We've become often, as conservatives, professional complainers and professional whiners rather than taking your profession of faith and your vocational calling and use those things to be creators of the culture, not complainers of the culture. Be winners, not whiners, by creating the alternate industries that honor what is right and what is good, and lean into that stuff with your time, with your money, with your influence. And you two are examples of doing that in the journalism lane and in the professional sports lane. I'm trying to do that with entertainment and education. Right now, I'm actually here. I'm in my wardrobe for a new children's show that I'm creating. It's we're saying this is going to be the new Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood for our generation of children and grandchildren. Really modernized. We've got Jim Henson, Sesame Street Muppet Puppeteers, Iggy the Iguana. It's an amazing show that teaches children how to build character while entertaining them. And it's called Adventures with Iggy and Mr. Kirk.
I love it. I love that. Well, and to your point, you're doing that in entertainment, right? Riley, in sports. I mean, every area needs this. Christians need to be involved in every area. And one of the big things I want to hit on, in addition to the show there, the other thing, Riley, is this lawsuit. Pretty shocking and very interesting. You and other athletes teamed up. You filed a lawsuit against the National Collegiate Athletics Association. Talk a little bit about this lawsuit and what you're hoping to accomplish.
Well, honestly, first, let me just say, Kirk, I can't wait to watch Iggy and Mr. Kirk. That sounds awesome. And you're right, the left, really what I'm not to make this polarizing, left versus right. It's really evil, I would say, has overtaken the public square in, just as you said, virtually every realm, whether it be academia, whether it be our government, whether it be the media, whether it be corporate America. Of course, in Hollywood, we're seeing it even in our spiritual realm. Even in our churches, we have seen this massive split, so it seems. So what you're doing to fight and push back there is incredible and certainly necessary, and I would argue urgent. So could not be more grateful and really proud and excited to watch Iggy and Mr. Kirk. And for what you guys are doing over at Brave Books. It's truly phenomenal. But the lawsuit, that is certainly my way of pushing back and fighting back. I thought for so long, it was so clear to me what the NCAA had done. They explicitly violated a federal law, and that federal law being the federal civil rights law of Title IX, which says there's no discrimination. It prevents discrimination on the basis of one's sex. What me and my teammates and my competitors experienced was a direct and explicit discrimination on the basis of our sex. So for so long, I thought to myself, there's not a lot of gray area here. Someone should sue the NCAA. It's what the other side does so well. They threaten and they pursue these lawsuits. We've seen it. We've seen Letitia James. We've seen the left pursue these lawsuits, and it's effective. It works. And so I thought, we need to do that. And then it was like God tapping on my shoulder. He's like, hey, Riley, it's you who needs to do that. And so we have now formed a team of myself and 15 other athletes who have been adversely affected at the hands of the NCAA, suing them. Again, their most basic duties are to provide fair and safe and equal opportunities, fairness in competitions, and they're failing on every account, and they continue to. So we are pushing back. We are suing. Of course, it's very seldom that the NCAA loses a lawsuit. But again, I have no doubt in my mind that this will be a successful one because, again, there's not a lot of room for discrepancy here.
Well, and you're elevating the
Yes.
issue, right? Yeah, I mean, you're
Way to
elevating the
go.
issue.
Love it.
You're tackling it, and I mean, this is a conversation that needs to happen. You guys are two of the figures making it happen. I've kept you for a long time here. The last question I want to ask both of you, because we've talked a lot about the negative things that are happening, the chaos that's going on, the separation from God, and all of that, and how it has impacted things. But Kirk, I'll start with you. What is something, I mean, you've been traveling the country, talking to families. What is something that has you hopeful for the future in light of all of that?
Lots of things. Um, Riley Gaines has me hopeful. I see other people in sports, entertainment, music, who are standing up and doing these kinds of things. I see mama bears standing up at school board meetings. I see fathers understanding that masculinity is like, under such crazy attack, and they're wanting to understand what it means to be a man again, to raise sons again. I see this as I travel to libraries and schools and churches all over the country. The other thing that gives me great two other things I'll mention quickly is one, history. History gives me great hope because I see that there is a story that is playing itself out, and the author is amazing. History is his story, the story of God from the very beginning to the end, and it's moving in this direction where sometimes you find yourself in one of the chapters and you go, holy cow, this whole thing is falling apart, this is the end of the world. And then you realize, no, you're in the middle of the story somewhere. And the author knows exactly what he's doing. And those nail-biting moments really are what make the story so exciting. It provides contrast to the mercy and the grace and the goodness of the protagonist when you see the antagonist just being so wicked and cruel. And I know that the tsunami wave of God's goodness and his providence is behind us, and we're moving in the flow of that current, and things are moving in a good and positive direction. At the end of the day, goodness and truth is growing, it's not shrinking. And it's times like this where I believe we experience national setbacks that turn out to be divine setups for spiritual comebacks, led by people like Riley, people like you, Billy, people like others that I'm seeing. And then, of course, I just have straight up promises from God, who never lies and has never failed to keep a promise. And he says he's working all things together for good for those who love him. So I can take that to the bank.
Yeah, I love that. I love it. That is great. Riley, for you, what would you say gives you hope in light of all the chaos?
I mean, Kirk really, he hit the nail on the head. But what I'll say here, now compared to a year ago, even, the strides that we have made, the impact that's been had, the momentum that's being had, is really paramount. Even if you look at something as simple, it might not seem like a big deal, but it is a big deal. You look at outlets like Fox News, right? A conservative outlet that's on our side on these issues. They even, for a while, they pandered to all the trans nonsense, the gender ideology nonsense, and then use she, her pronouns and blah, blah, blah. That's not happening anymore. So
No,
it's small things, but these are things that matter. People day by day, they're becoming more bold. They're becoming more empowered to say, hey, look,
Yep.
the emperor is wearing no clothes. That's a naked man. No pun intended.
Perfect analogy.
So, and just
Absolutely.
as Kirk said, we know the outcome, right? The war, we know who wins. Correction, we know who has already won the war, and that is what keeps a smile on my face. That's why I can do this with an incredibly light heart. That's why I'm grounded. That's what propagates me forward, honestly. And it's why those hateful things you mentioned, right? The present sufferings. If you think of Romans 8:18, right? Our present sufferings aren't worth comparing to the glory that will be revealed in us. The present sufferings, the name calling, whatever it might be, it pales in comparison when you know what you're fighting for, and more importantly, who you're fighting for.
Billy, I hope you hear the theme that's going on here between me and Riley, and we didn't like plan this beforehand, but she and I both know something that young David in the Bible knew when he fought Goliath. Everybody else was really scared, but there was something that David understood. He understood that Goliath wasn't the giant. There was one who dwarfed Goliath, and that was the God of heaven. the Almighty, who fought on his behalf because David's heart was surrendered to him. And you know what? It's not just me and Riley. It's you two. And there's millions of other people around the country who understand that big tech and big Hollywood and big pharma and big sports, that's not the giant. We have someone who dwarfs all of them, and he's on our side.
That is a powerful place for us to close it out. And that theme present through what you both said, the peace that people can get through that relationship with God, right? And that's what you both have. You're both at peace. You're both bold, and we need more courage today. Appreciate you both coming on.
Thanks, Billy.
Great to be with you.
Kirk. Excited for Iggy and Mr. Kirk.